Ramadan Juma Mubarak. Listen, I had a brother reach out to me earlier today regarding Bean Pie Mind, the brand, thinking that it was a business, and more so a business of selling bean pies. Look, before I even started the brand, I had written a long description of the essence of the mission of this brand, and it can be summarized in one sentence. And that is Bean Pie Mind is um, I just lost my train of thought, but it's a brand, but it's not only for Muslims, but it's for the marginalized, right? It's about inspiring the marginalized and Muslim. So essentially, before jumping into this interview with this illustrious young woman we have with us today, Subhan Wahaj, I really want to talk a little bit more about that and clarify this misconception that is apparently a little bit common, all too common currently. So, Bean Pie Mind arose out of a need that I saw when often we're looking at the media, talk shows, radio shows, HBO, for instance, American Muslim. When you see Muslims represented, who are you seeing? Typically it's foreigners, and more so Middle Eastern foreigners, and that's not to dismiss their presence in the community or to minimize that, but only to, if for nothing else, gain more balance. I think it's problematic. So what Bean Pie Mind seeks to do is rectify this, and acknowledging the diverse voices of the Deen. When you look at statistics like African Americans being the second largest in the nation regarding the Muslim population, and then you also see that East Asians, even on a worldwide scale, are the majority of Muslims. This, again, is problematic when you see these representations, and I think it's done intentionally. We have to do something about that. This dichotomy, or this false opposition between Americans and Muslims, can easily be solved through us as African Americans, were we to erase it. And so, again, this is something that we're seeking to do. Furthermore, I believe it would be remiss if I, as a Muslim woman, were to not have an intersectional approach to this. So just as the prophetic tradition teaches that we are for oppressed people, all oppressed people, not just black, but people of color, not just people of color, but women, and the list goes on, that's what Bean Pie Mind, again, seeks to do. So, without further ado, I'm going to get into introducing our guest today. A big point to make is, again, this isn't done to get stuck on these social constructs, but of race and gender and all these things, or even just the inspiration piece, but to gain proximity and closeness to the Most High. So we as Muslims have a wealth of spiritual tradition that we can pull from, and inshallah, this will be a means of transcending some of these things and beyond. But again, we have to understand the problems. We have to know ourselves before we can transcend it, before we can do all these other wonderful, fabulous things. Again, she, Subhana Wahaj, is the epitome of the voices that we seek to highlight in this platform, only or largely because, for instance, I remember talking to her and her saying, I complimented her, and she said something along the lines of, may Allah make you as you see me, or make me as you see me. And I was like, subhanallah, talk about praise and blame becoming equal in the believer's eyes. I mean, this is the epitome of the prophetic tradition. So that is the key thing to keep in mind. But before jumping too far in, let's begin mindfully with some dua. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin al-Fatih lima uglika wal qatim lima sabaq wa nasir al-haq bil haq wa hadi ila siratika mustaqim wa ala alihi haqqa qadri wa midad al-azim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Jumping right in, I have a quote that I want to share with you all. I believe it's by Anis Naeem. I'm probably saying the name wrong. She's pretty famous. You may have heard of her. And it goes, suddenly the risk to remain tight in a bud overcame, or the pain in the risk that of remaining tight in a bud overcame the risk that of blossoming, right? So this idea of, basically blossoming really reminisces what you did in writing your book, authoring this book, How I Found Myself in Egypt. And my question to start for you is, at what point, what experience, what influence did you feel that need to blossom? How did you come about that? I know in the beginning you talk about 9/11 and your experiences with that in the book. You also talk about being on the MSA, and I know you were writing throughout a lot of your experiences. So if you could just hone in on a certain time period or event, what would that be?
Yes, this is after my husband and I went to Egypt, and shortly after that, I gave birth to my first child. and I was experiencing a lot of difficulties, trying to balance everything, trying to balance being a wife and a mother and juggle everything, take care of everything. And I was trying very hard, trying extremely hard. I wasn't doing any work outside of the home, and I just made it. I said, okay, I'm just gonna try to master this and get everything right. And but no matter what, I just felt like I kept feeling. I'm like, man, why is it I can't get this right? And it was very difficult, and I wanted to give up, and I had a choice. I was this close to saying, okay, that's it, forget it. I'm not gonna. It was so tempting,
Mhm.
and
You're talking about after you'd already started, right, writing the book?
no,
Or,
well, no,
as
this
a
is
wife and
yes,
okay.
this is before I started writing the book. And so at that moment, but I knew deep inside, I said, I know giving up is not the right thing to do. I know it's a reason that I'm going through this. So I I made prostration, and in that moment when I made sujood to Allah, then Allah gave me this idea, and He said, write about it, write about your experiences. And it was just so amazing. That's when the idea came to write about how. That's when the idea of how I found myself in Egypt. That's when it first came. So I never thought that I would write about my life, these experiences. I had no idea. It was a gift that happened from.
It sounds like strife, right? Like
Yes.
fascinating, you know. This whole inspiration came and was born out of what most would consider a hard situation.
Yes.
You know, that's beautiful. Building on that, and also as a side note, you know, we are all our own people. We all have our own opinions. So, you know, to crush any stereotypes that might be forming in your minds right now. You know, even under the Deen Media Center, you know, we are our own entities, although we are under under it, and we are all Muslim. You know, we are also expressing our own opinions, and also we are both students, so no one's professing to come, like no one's coming from a high horse when they're talking. You know, this is just based on our own learning and experiences, and I think those are pretty important. Alhamdulillah. So this is actually leads right into my next question. When I wonder if there was any point when you're writing your story and you just said, I can't, like you literally just ran out of cans, and you know, how did you overcome that? What did you do to you know, keep pushing and actually produce what it was that you had been inspired to put out?
Well, there was one point where in the beginning everything was going smoothly, and I was so excited. I had my book every day. I had the time writing, and then at one point, every time I turned around, it would be something preventing me from writing. So it would go days without me even
Something like what? Like
everything, like
everyday.
all of the everyday duties,
Okay.
cooking, cleaning, or something, and it was just like almost like something was preventing me from writing. I was like, wow, why? And I felt myself getting frustrated because I said, okay, I know I'm supposed to write this. Why is it I'm not able to do it? Then I said, okay, I'll submit. I know it's a reason this is happening. And so I just took a break from it. I said, okay, I'm not going to write for a while. You know, let me just relax. You know, it's going to happen. The time is going to happen. And I actually, I had a deadline for myself when I was going to finish the book, when I thought I was going to finish the book. That deadline passed. And then actually after that, soon after that, that's when I met the character in the book. I changed her name, but who's known as Jamila, who someone that my husband was entertaining the idea of marrying her. So actually I had no idea that experience later on would be added to the book. So it was a reminder for myself how, you know, man plots and plan, but Allah's the best of planners. Here I was, I had in my mind, okay, I'm going to finish, for example, June 21st, and then June 22nd, just for example, I met the sister Jamila, and then there was a whole nother chapter. which later on was to be included in the book. So
right. Arguably one of the juiciest chapters, as your dad put juiciest. You call it juicy. But I think this is some really important stuff to recap, because in the beginning you mentioned, I think, feeling a lot of like power, which usually we do when we're starting any project. You know, we'll feel a lot of energy, and then it starts to dwindle. And I think it's really important what you said about taking that time for yourself to really kind of refresh and realign in terms of your purpose. And then get back to it. And even after, you set a deadline, which is also huge, having a deadline. And even after you didn't happen to meet it, a lot of plans we planned, you still pushed forward and finished what you set out to complete. So that's really huge. The story ends somewhat abruptly. Abruptly. It's interesting because it begs the question of whether or not your viewpoints changed since writing the book. Any parts of maybe what you wrote, because I know for myself, sometimes I'll say things or write things and I'll be like, what was I thinking? Or, it's just a lot that goes on, after the fact. And so I just wondered if maybe you had moments like that.
I think the main thing for me is throughout the book, I'm struggling with trying to find myself, trying to find peace, and really trying to find my role as a woman. And throughout the book, I struggle with this. It's not until later on, after the book, that I find more peace, and I realize certain things, and I feel like Allah has blessed me with more understanding and maturity in terms of the woman's role, in terms of me specifically. I feel like now I have a more broader understanding, and that if it was anything, then I would say it would be that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's funny that actually really leads in well to the next thing I would want to ask, because some of the most interesting quotes came from around page 18 or 19, the beginning of the book. You talk about your mom and her essentially warning you. You say on page 18, we were given instructions to hold out until we got a college degree regarding marriage. And that is to stay focused and not get married until we had a piece of paper that would, in her eyes, grant us independence and financial security. As a result, I was on my guard and serious about getting my education. Should my future husband, whoever that may be, act out of order, I would go about my business and my degree and my career without worrying about how I was going to fend for myself. And then you talk about wanting to erase her pain with something like a magic marker and that kind of thing. There's a lot of subtle and more overt interplays of power that you talk about, and really more so empowerment. And I know you mentioned also not really knowing what that looks like, but knowing that you wanted your daughter to feel at peace and comfortable with herself. Could you speak to that?
Yes, I think that's very important. First of all, I think in the African American Muslim community, I think this is something that a lot of us struggle with. Some of our parents, they tell us, okay, they want the daughters not to get married until they get a college degree. They want them to be independent, and I think sometimes it's the Muslim female. They get mixed messages, and they're not really sure. Then on the other hand, they told that, okay, no, you shouldn't necessarily, you don't have to work outside the home, or you shouldn't necessarily aspire to work outside the home. Just be content with being in the home and taking care of your children, taking care of your house. You get the most rewards for that.
Or you see the other extreme, where it's you have to compromise, and it's there's no firmness in your faith, and you're it's
right.
Oh, I don't really pray Islam. It's that's one of the 5 pillars. What do you mean? So especially the mainstream media. So it's interesting.
Yes.
Both extremes.
So for me, it was a lot of struggle in this regard, in terms of, for me, the main thing was me finding peace, and me knowing, okay, what does Islam really say? What is the right thing to do? I don't want to do something just because my mother told me, or based on her experience, or I don't want to do something because somebody else gave me their opinion, but I want to know what is really the right thing to do and really feel at peace with it. So before even getting married, I thought that, okay, I never thought I would be a stay-at-home mother. I thought that, I had my college degree, So I thought I would be out there working and have a 9 to 5 or whatever, but it just actually didn't happen like that. After I got married, I never worked outside of the home until later on, years later. And when I did work, it wasn't a regular 9 to 5. It was, you know, things that I did on my own, my own business, that type, where it was flexible hours, that type of thing.
But you still had a taste of it, right? Excuse me, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about in your book where you talk about interning at, you know, journalism school and whatnot, you know, so, you know, you still got experience in the real world, and I just think, you know, my own opinion, it's still important just to get a taste of that. You know, we talk about having these choices as a woman, respecting, you know, if you want to go out and work, if you want to be in the family, but I think it's important to just, like, note, you know, there is that, you know, you did at least give yourself the chance to try.
That's true. Before I got married, yes, I had a little bit of experience, you know, working and that type of thing. So and even after I got married, I did have a choice. Um, I did have a choice to work outside, and my husband didn't mind. But for me, I wasn't sure if that was the best thing, because I said, okay, I'm already struggling inside the house. I could feel like I could barely get it together in the house. Is it really the best thing for me to work or work right now? You know, maybe I should wait till my children get older or that type of thing. So it was this constant battle inside and not knowing. But only recently, now that I have, after 3 children later, that I find myself now at peace, and I found myself, I really have a resolution, and I realized really the main thing that each woman is different. You know, what one woman can handle, not necessarily another woman can handle, and it's not necessarily, you know, I don't think we should put down one woman on another. I don't think we should put down a woman because they put down a woman because they don't work outside the home. Really, even if a woman has children, if they taking care of the home, they are working. And at the same time, we shouldn't put down a woman because they decide to go to work outside the home. It doesn't mean that that their house is falling apart. So it depends on the woman. Really, that's something each woman, they have to be honest with themselves, know what they can handle, know what they want, and really we should each evaluate our intentions. What actions are based on intention? What's the reason that I'm working in person? So that's what I had to ask myself. I said, what is the reason? I said, okay, is it that I need money? If that's the case, maybe some women, they work because they actually you know, they need to bring in more money or whatever the case. Maybe some women are single, but I had to be honest with myself, ask myself, okay, what would be my reason for working outside the home now? And I think each woman should be honest with themselves, and we shouldn't necessarily follow what what society says, because I think a lot of times in society they make the woman feel like they're not valuable unless they go outside the home and work. Yeah. And I don't think that's correct. I think that,
so it's not a one answer, one
right,
size fits all kind of thing, really.
Right. If a woman decides that they want to stay at home and be dedicated to their children and be dedicated to family, then that's their right. They should be able to do that. They shouldn't feel like, okay, oh man, I'm not working. You are working. You're working inside the home. At the same time, if a woman, they feel like they need to be challenged and they can use their skills to benefit the Umar and they can handle everything, then why not? So now I'm really coming to terms with that and saying, okay, you know what? I feel at peace with it now. And I finally got to a point where at one point I felt like I needed to graduate, but beyond the home, I feel like, you know, I shouldn't just stay at home because I feel like I'm going crazy. I have skills that God gave me, and it's time to go and do try to, you know, go out and do other things. So I just for my mind, so I could feel stimulated, so I could feel alive. And now coming to peace with that. Okay, it doesn't make me, you know, it's not anything wrong if I decide to go out and work. You know, now I'm working on my business. I have flexible hours, and I still put my family first. I don't have that stress of, oh man, I have to do this 9 to 5, and because my children are still young. So alhamdulillah, I feel now at peace, and I feel like I know a lot of women are struggling with it, and I just want to let you know you're not alone. Try to seek, but what I try to do now, even now, is I try to seek mentors whenever I can, you know, Muslim women who are successful, and ask them how do they juggle it, and a lot of times they give me a lot of helpful tips. So that's very helpful, you know, reaching out to older women who have wisdom and knowledge and also having a support system, women helping each other. If you need a break,
Yeah.
taking turns with the children.
And I think that's really something that I think a lot of people could benefit from in terms of advice for those that are feeling bogged down by work, by family. Any of the members of our ummah feeling like that, how would you recommend blossoming?
Yes, yes. One, if you
How
can.
did you do it? Really?
One, I joined a support group, Umi Babies, which is online, and I also joined another support group, which is with older sisters, and I like that support. We actually meet physically. I like that because it's mostly older sisters too, and I learned so much from them. Always,
You know, the one we met at?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Always seeking advice from them and different things. There's so much I always learn. The other thing is not trying to do it alone. Trying to go out, have play dates with your friends and go out, let your children play with each other. Don't just feel like you gotta stay in a home and be miserable and do it alone. You're suffering. Just try to network with other sisters.
There's a saying, if you want to go far, or if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go as a team. So I think that really reminisces that.
Yes.
And I really want to get into this key part of the book. You have this vivid conversation, arguably the most descript dialogue with your co-wife or your potential co-wife, where you talk about one, how she came across as so sweet, and then later on how you realize she saw polygyny as almost like a novelty, and that she wanted to be like the second prize wife. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then you talk about the other side of that, where you meet these other sisters and what's the name of the place with the T? Tanta, yeah. And then you see another side where they're almost like friends, just like you and your husband are friends, the co-wives are friends, and then you realize that a lot of the focus that I noticed is kind of on the women, comes back to the man and how he treated them, how he you realize that a lot of the way that the polygyny worked was based on how the husband was treating his wives. So speaking in regards to that, like I just want to know your thoughts, like anything you might elaborate on.
Yes. With the two women that I met in Tanta, they were African Americans and they were co-wives, and they were the best of friends. I just loved their relationship. They were so respectful. Matter of fact, they were friends before they were co-wives. And I just love, one of them was actually bragging, oh yeah, I breastfed all of them, and they go to each other's house often. They don't see each other as like half brothers and sisters. They're like, these are my brothers, these are my sisters.
One like braiding the other's hair?
Yes, one was braiding the other daughter's hair. They were joking with each other, and I just sensed it was genuine. And I said, wow, you don't see a lot of examples like this, positive examples. So I asked one of them, I said, okay, what is it? What is it that you think is the key? And she said, really, the man, if a lot of it rests on his shoulders. Really, he sets the precedence, and the way he goes about it. He doesn't favor one over the other or make one, naturally, of course, women, they're gonna have jealousy and all that stuff, but he said that when he's with her,
I think men get just as jealous as women do.
Maybe.
Honestly, it just looks different. But I'm interested in your experiences though, because I know you don't want to tell too much because it's that's the kind of like the climax of the book. But if you could just talk a little bit about your experiences with it.
The thing about me that was kind of surprising even for myself is I never thought that I would look at polygamy favorably, because it was certain things that I saw growing up, and it made me feel uncomfortable and made me feel vulnerable. That made me feel like, okay, you know what, that's a bunch of drama. I don't want to be involved with that. So to actually get to a point where I said, okay, you know what, I submit, if this is gonna happen, okay, you know what, I was just really surprised. It was really really Allah has really his hand in it. I'm just very grateful that Allah has really
sounds like opened your mind.
yeah, open my mind and really that during the whole situation, even though it was a difficult moments and all that, he was there, and I said, "Wow, it's just so amazing." So I mean, one thing is, I think a lot of sisters, just from the idea, they just like, "Oh no, I don't want to share a
Off the
man," or
jump.
certain things they
Yeah,
don't want to
off the
think
jump.
about their husband with another wife or things like that, and they totally shut their mind. But I'm a firm believer that whatever's meant to be is meant to be. So even if whether you just oh no, I don't want it, I want it, or okay, sometimes it's just being open to it and just really just accepting a cutter. I think that and alone it makes it easier. um and throughout the whole situation, um the the whole situation, if I wasn't constantly remembering a line, going back to him, making dua, then I wouldn't have handled that situation so well.
Right, yeah.
That
You
was
talk
like
a little
Allah
bit about
was really there helping me and guiding me, because
But
it was
yeah,
a struggle.
it's
It
interesting
wasn't.
how it worked out, though. It is. It's really interesting. So that's one other reason to go ahead and read and see for
Yeah.
yourself. Um, just to wrap up, and we talked about, getting support groups and
Mhm.
not doing things alone. Muslima consultation group is great for that. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I remember vividly you talking about a sister named Afifa Siddiqui. She actually, if you could just detail a little bit about her situation, and I'm going to follow that up with some action. But yeah, just.
Yes, Afia Siddiqui. When I first heard about what happened to her, I cried, and even I think about her case all the time, and I'm just like, oh man. Um, all right, who was she? She was a scholar, a brilliant scholar, and an educationist
She
with
was a PhD student, right?
She was a PhD, yes, and she had a dream to revolutionize the education system in Pakistan. Okay, this sister was targeted. It was she was after she disappeared and was missing for 5 years. It was discovered that she was detained and
Guantanamo Bay, right?
no, this was a detention center in Bagram.
Mm.
And so she suffered sexual abuse. She was brutal physical assault and mental torture. And so 5 years she was in a detention center in Bagram. And then in February 2010, she was tried and convicted in a U.S. federal court on charges of attempted murder and assaulting a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan. Now these are the charges, but the thing about these charges that's problematic is this: she was accused of attempted murder, right? But she had no weapons. Report there was no U.S. personnel that was hurt. However, Afia Siddiqui was shot and suffered serious injuries, including brain damage. So if we just think about this logically, how is it that she is blamed? How is she as attempted murder when there was no one who was hurt, but she was the one who was shot and suffered brain damage? So she's currently in a U.S. jail at FMC Carswell, where her life is in constant threat. Now, being a Muslim, her Quran is desecrated, her clothes is stripped, and her food is urinated upon. Now, I mean, almost every time I read her story, it's like I feel like I have to throw up, and I feel like I have to cry or something. I'm just like, I feel sick, because I'm like, how could you treat another human being like this? Yeah. How could you treat a human being?
What was moving, if you don't mind me interjecting, I remember you talked about it and you were really crying, because it's frustrating when you're hearing these things and you can sit and be okay with it and not take some step. If it's only talking about it as you're talking about it and sharing the story, so it's not just something that's washed away and the masses of other causes that we get lost in. This is our own sister in Islam. So I think it's important to take some action surrounding it. We are a people of action. You look at the 5 pillars, 3 out of the 5 are actions. We're told if we can't do something with our hands, change it with our mouth. If we can't change it with our mouth, change it with our thoughts. So follow through and go to the website. I posted under action the link to her website. You can sign a petition. You can at least write her a letter. There are a few things you can do. SubhanAllah, I just saw Sister post about this today. So if nothing else, educate yourself up on her and spread the word in terms of what's going on. Your father, Imam Siraj al-Haj, without a doubt, is famous for his advocacy within the Muslim community and for marginalized populations, but you, no doubt, are making your mark as well. I mean, as a new author of this intimate and raw memoir, how I found myself in Egypt. It's so funny. We had like this little side joke where I was like, I'm gonna write my own book. I'm gonna write how I found myself in West Africa. It's inspiring. It is inspiring. But she simultaneously teaches women and people of color what Muslims are, and she's shattering misconceptions of moms and wives about their ability to affect change. So by Allah, we hope to inspire you to find and be yourself as well. Please, if you could talk about the book signing.
Yes, tomorrow, Saturday, June 27th, there's a book signing at the Atlanta Fulton Public Library, the West End branch. That's located on 525 Peoples Street, Atlanta, Georgia 30310. So the event is free and open to the public.
3 p.m.
3 p.m., yes.
Yes, inshallah, we'll see you there. You can get your signed copy. Also, the Deen Media Center is having an event, a fundraiser, this tomorrow at 6 p.m. It's $20 a ticket. Highly recommend attending. And also be on the lookout for more from Beam Pie Mind in terms of interviews and blog posts. If you go to beampiemind.com, you can get all the information and recaps. And inshallah, we look forward to seeing you next time. Subhanaka rabbika izzati yasifun wa salamun mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Far beyond anything we just talked about. Allah is far beyond anything we just talked about. And peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad. And glory be to him, Lord of all the world. Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak.